do maybe one or two little demos of things, I can do that first, or I can have you guys, if you have any questions, we can start with questions. Do you have a preference? Anybody have a burning question or a half burning question, smoking question?
I have a question, but I don't really mind, or really, it doesn't really matter if I ask before or after. So you could go on with your demo if you'd like. I just.
Oh, okay. Anybody else, Gavin?
Oh, never mind. Never mind.
So I'm sorry, missed that. No. Selma, did I cut you off there?
No.
No. Okay. Well, then I have a couple little things that I want to. Geez, I had them written down here. Where'd my paper go? It was right here next to me, and which has now. Where did it go? How can that happen? How can that happen? Because if we have to rely on my memory, we're in deep trouble. And it was, seriously, it was sitting right here. Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to look at InDesign a little bit. It's not my last open. Okay. All right. So I have some things that I know that I started with. Those of you that are also in typography. And the two assignments, the one in typography and in here, have a lot of overlap. Mostly because the assignment for us here in Printmedia is largely a typographic assignment. But it is also an introduction to InDesign. So I'm actually trying, and it's the final assignment that we would normally have. It's still our final here, but we would have other warm-up assignments in InDesign before we get to this point. So I do know that it's harder to catch on in here, especially if you don't have also the typography class and you haven't done anything at all in InDesign before. So I would expect that that would be even more difficult. So that's where I want your questions, that I can help you navigate through that stuff with those questions. On the other hand, I am going to keep pushing us as much as I think is reasonable. So one of the things that I want to talk about here today, and actually I think I'm going to start it a slightly. So on our assignment page, I have a number of links here to different things. And I am expecting that you have all read these and gone to those links at this point. On the other hand, sometimes I hear some questions that indicate to me that perhaps you either haven't had a chance to look at those, or you've forgotten or didn't understand what the link was about, or the link was broken, or any number of things. So what I want to do actually today is start out with one or two of these, and then again encourage you to go to this page often. The links I put on there are, for the most part, should answer the most common questions that I would expect you to run into. It may not answer all of your questions, but it will be a reference that you can use, I believe, to help you with most of your questions, or make what might be difficult for you to do a little bit easier. So I want to remind you of these links that are on this page. The other thing then down here under book requirements, make sure you're hitting these things in what you do. A big part that we've been talking about in class are the paragraph styles and character styles, but also auto page numbering and so forth. And I think I showed you one way of starting pages numbering in a different way last time by creating a second master page that has a different setup. But another possibility is listed here. And if you wanted page number 1 to start on a different page, but not necessarily, there's no need to create a whole new separate master page to do this, then the page under the page numbering window, which this little video talks about, will allow you to do that. And it's not a complicated thing, so I'm just going to reference you to this video if you want the page number 1 to begin on a different page. I should say ahead of time, well, why would you want to do that? And a typical reason would be you have front matter, like your table of contents, perhaps a dedication page, those kinds of things. And then you have a half title page, and then finally you have a story beginning. So you may have chosen to not number the front matter, which is pretty common, and you want the first numbered page to be number 1, even though it's perhaps the 5th page in the book. So if that's the case, if you follow this tutorial here or this video, it will guide you through that thing. It's not a difficult thing at all. I need to make sure that we know what I mean by a pull quote, because I am going to maybe demonstrate that a little bit today. So a pull quote, it means that you are taking some sentence that you feel is important in the story and pulling it out and treating it larger or more in a more special way. You don't cut it from the story. It's still in the story. So essentially you're duplicating it, but you're bringing it out and making it larger, more dominant, more prominent, perhaps in some way. That's what I mean by a pull quote. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that's already in quotations. You are quoting the story by bringing it out, duplicating it. Then it needs to be in quotes, even though it's not in quotes in the story itself. So that's what I mean by a pull quote. Roman hanging punctuation marks are the full name of what we commonly shorten to just say hanging punctuation. We do that in the story window, and it's usually applied to quotation marks on the left-hand side of a paragraph or a pull quote. And what it results in are the quotes being a little bit further to the left than the rest of the lines lining up one above the other. And again, I'm going to demonstrate that. Diminuendo, we've talked about quite a bit. Glyphs palette, I am going to show us today. And a ruled line I want to talk to. So a ruled line, this is what I'm referring to right here. And sometimes that is shortened to just be said as rule. So we think of rules are, well, that's how we play the game, by rules. In layout and composition, a rule is a straight line. And you might have a straight line or a rule as a part of the master page folio information. And so I am going to talk about that or show us that today. I want to talk about ligatures and the rest of these things I've either spoken about or I'm not going to do it yet. Okay, but if you are at that point before I talk about them, your links are right here. Okay, so let me go to InDesign. And I think the first thing that I want to, let's zoom in right here. So you can see right now that these quotation marks, so as a block quote, I've made a paragraph style. Let's take this off. A paragraph style called quote. And I've applied it to this paragraph. Now I'm going to zoom, and we can see that the quote marks are hanging Roman quotations. Since it's a block quote, I've got indentations on both sides. And I also have quotes within a quote. They are single quotes. And the whole thing is set in italics. The person who set it is set off by an M dash, and then that name is not in italics because we're not quoting that. That's just the person's name. So, all right, so how that, zoom it slightly here so we can see the whole thing. So it's looking like this. And if I open up the quote paragraph style and take a look at it, we'll see that the basic character style is following, actually, let's go back here first. So it's based on the story text. So what that's telling us, and we'll see this on any new paragraph styles that we create, we can choose what it's based on. So we could have chosen any of the other paragraph styles that we've already created. I'm creating a based on, or a starting point, we can think of it that way. The starting point for what this looks like is going to be the description that we've set up in the story text paragraph style. So that's going to be things like the same leading, the same point size, the same typeface, those types of things. So I'm starting there. I don't have to do it again. Then what am I going to do to make it different from the story text is our other things that we change now. So I'm going to go to basic character formats, and I'm going to say all I have to do is put in italic, because everything else is already going to be there for me as a part of the story text one. So I just made it italic. That's all I had to do. If I look under advanced character formats, I'm not making any changes there. Indents and spacing, though, I am. So I'm making the still left alignment on the paragraph. That's what story text is, so that's already done. But the left indent for the entire paragraph is 2 picas, and the right indents, and from the right-hand side, is also 2 picas. So the entire left and right-hand side now come in. And I haven't done any other changes here, but I could if I wanted. So just as an example, I'm going to go to character color and say this other color. Okay, and now that entire paragraph style is that color. Notice we have, that's that indent on the right and the left. What I didn't have us look at was the hanging Roman punctuation. So let's go back there one more time. Let's do the character color, change it back to black, and then oh, right. So that's okay. So that's done. All paragraph, or all of these we may or may not have quotation marks. So that one I am doing in the story editor, where I click on optical margin alignment. Now, why they throw this different term in there out of the blue, I honestly don't understand Adobe sometimes. This should simply say hanging Roman punctuation, because that's what it's doing. It's the only time you use it. But they choose to throw in this other term that isn't used for anything else. So optical margin alignment is equal to creating hanging Roman punctuation. So that's how you make that happen. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, then I'm going to go to my next thing. And down here, just in a story text paragraph, I'm going to type in the word Pacific. Doesn't make sense. Well, first Pacific paragraph, I guess, kind of makes sense. But I just decided to type the word Pacific because it has a letter combination here, the FI, which is a common ligature. So a ligature is 2 letters that are physically connected. And an FI and an FL are 2 very, very common letter combinations that if left normal, then the 2 letters touch each other in kind of awkward ways. So InDesign, by default, makes ligatures all on its own. I didn't do anything special except type in PACIFIC, yet it made the F and the I look like this. It already turned it into a ligature. Now it does that. You cannot turn off and on ligatures any place other than a paragraph style. So unless you have a paragraph style changed and you are created, I should say, you can't turn ligatures off. And if by default it isn't on already, then you can't make use of them. So I believe that for all of us right now, ligatures is a default setting in all of your paragraph styles. But if you all typed the word Pacific and zoomed in on it like I just did, you should see the F and the I ligature look like this. Now, if I go to my paragraph styles of, in this case, story text, and I look down here, I have to remember where it's located. It's basic character formats. Right here in the middle, by default, ligatures is checked. I'm going to uncheck it right now and say OK. So when I come back here, now I see Pacific written this way. Now, because my particular story text paragraph style, we've already opened up the tracking by 5%. So it's eliminating this thing that normally is awkward of the F and the dot on the I hitting each other. So by opening up the tracking, I've eliminated that as a problem. On the other hand, the dot next to there is kind of a hot spot anyway. I know it's picky, but it is. And so instead of having it like this, I want a ligature there. And so I'm going to, again, go back to my story text paragraph style, and under basic character formats, and make sure ligatures in box is checked. So when I OK it, then it will look like this. So it's a cleaner combination. And of course, again, I believe that that's going to be the default setting for all of you already. But you could check it by doing what I just did. Type in the word Pacific and see if the FI is in fact making a ligature. You also, however, need to know that there are times when you don't want a ligature. So an example here would be, let's say I wanted to letter space out the word Pacific. So I take that and I'm going to do it here right now, and I'm going to remove all this. But so let's say I wanted to track this out. It's as a title or something. So I go in here and I change this. We'll go up to 200. Oh, that's very interesting. It's discovered something new that they've changed. So in the past, remember this was a ligature. By tracking it out, InDesign automatically changed it to its individual letters. And in the past, it didn't do that. It kept it as a ligature, so the F and the I were really close together. It looked like that. And obviously, that's weird. So we've got a lot of space between the other letters of the word Pacific, but not the F and the I. And that's the way it used to do. So that's great for us. So we actually don't have to worry about that particular problem any longer. So I guess it's just a matter of knowing how to turn it off and on, off or on the ligature option. Okay, so I guess the next thing I want to talk about is, let me say one of my favorite words in typography, which is dingbat. And dingbats also are known by other strange and wonderful words like giga and printer's flowers or printer's florins. And basically we would just call them little pictures. But they are little symbols that are image based. that are controlled by their size and position just like any other letter. So I put a little flower here that, and I'm going to say why or where you might use them in a minute. But first, knowing how to create them is an important thing. So there are two places, really. One is I can, in fact, I'll go after it. I can change my typeface from Minion is what I was using to a typeface that has symbols in it. So I have this typeface called Da Vinci, and it has, why you would need it to be forward or backwards, I don't know, but that's an option. Another option is extras. And you can see over here, there are a bunch of little pictures that look like high Renaissance kind of pictures. So I can change the typeface to that, or I can change it to an emoji typeface, or I can change it to something like Apple symbols. Apple symbols is one. And if you have Zapf, Dingbats, right here, Zapf Dingbats is also one with little symbols. I happen to have Adobe Wood type symbols on there as well. Wingdings is another version of this. Any of those changes in typefaces will allow you to have customized or create customized Dingbats. There's another location, however, and that's in the Glyphs palette. So if we, or window. So if I look under Window, Type, and go to Glyphs, in the typeface that I have selected, I will see the map of all of those. Since the typeface that I have out there right now is this Da Vinci one, I am seeing the map of all of the little characters that would show up for Da Vinci. Now, on the other hand, if I'm, let's click out here where it's Minion, and now I'm seeing these kind of characters, some of the extended version of ligatures. So here's an FFB, and FFL is a common one. So we have an extended number of ligatures. We also have some other special, right here, these are called diphthongs. And we have alternative letters. Here's an alternative A, for example. We have subscript and superscript versions of letters. And then we also have, at the bottom here are some of our more traditional dingbats that are a part of the Minion typeface family. So those will vary what are available depending upon the typeface that you pick. So I guess what I'm saying here is that to create a dingbat, you can do it either through the Glyphs palette, depending upon the typeface that you pick. And of course, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same typeface that you've been using. So, for example, my little flower, I changed the typeface to Da Vinci to create the flower. On the other hand, it might be something in the symbols area of the typeface that you are currently using. Okay? Now, sometimes people ask me, well, can I just draw my own and put it in there? And the answer is yes. You can do that, especially since we're not typing out paragraphs or anything with it. You can make your own little symbol and have it act like a dingbat. The difference is that these will be controlled with your paragraph. So as you edit the paragraph, notice if I click up here and type in more words, the words keep moving, but so does the dingbat, because it's like a letter. If it's its own little graphic, that's not necessarily going to happen. You might have to move it by itself. Okay, so okay, so that's how you can create it. Now the next question is, where or when would I use it? And for a book, like what we're doing, there's two common places that you might use it. So the way I'm using it right here is to kind of give us an example of one of those ways. And then I'm going to demonstrate a second. So this first one is, we're pretending that this is I guess we're pretending this is a one-page story. But anyway, you could think of this as the last page in the story. And so to signal that this is the end of the story, I've decided to use a dingbat. Remember, we have a signal to tell us the beginning of the story with diminuendo. So the dingbat in this case is like a bookend. It's something that visually signals it's the end of this story. Now, you might, some of the stories, you guys have asked me already questions. I don't remember which the story is that has the year in there, and you wondered if that was supposed to be there or not. That's kind of serving this same purpose. It's acting as a separator between one part of the story and another. Another way to do that, let's say that you have a story that you feel that doesn't have any separators in it currently, but you feel like, I don't know, maybe there's a flashback on a flash forward sections of the story. And so you might want to separate that flashback section from the current time section of the book by putting in a visual signal. And that signal could be a dingbat. I'm using it here at the end of the sentence, but it could be as a separator in the middle. So thinking of it as a separator. And of course, a ruled line would also be a possible separator. If it's a spot illustration, usually that won't do that. It'll seem like it's a part of the continuing story there. So even though the dingbat is a little picture, it's much, much, much smaller than if that same image were larger and acted like a spot illustration. So it's about hierarchy. It's about what it symbolically indicates. And we're talking about separators right now. Okay, and I said I was going to demonstrate how we might use it in another way. So let's see. Let's close the Glyphs palette for the moment. And I'm going to go to the master page. So I'm up here. And I'm going to decide that I want to put a dingbat as some part of the folio. And so I'm clicking down here. I've made an insertion point for where I want the page number to be, as well as other things. And one of the other things could be a dingbat. So it's clicking there, waiting for me. I decide. So I'm going to put the page number in first. So again, I go up to type, go down to insert special character, markers, current page number. And since I'm on the A master, it makes an A. I'm going to zoom in on it a little closer so it's easier to see for us. Okay. And now I'm going to decide where I want that to be, and I'm going to locate it down here. We're going to pretend that's right in the center. It's perhaps not, but I think it'll work for us for this. And then if I wanted other things to accompany it, I'm going to do a simple version of that first. I'm going to click in front of that A and put in an M dash, Shift Option dash. I could also look in the Glyphs palette and get it from there. Then I'm going to put a little space, click on the other side of the A, space, and put a second M dash. So what does that look like? So we're going to go down here. Oh, I haven't applied that. Oh, that's, am I not? No. We should be seeing that. There it is. Okay. We might have these in black or something. They're in black. Hmm. It doesn't matter what's on an odd or an even page either. This is a live demo. Well, that's a very simple thing. We've done that already many times, so I'm not quite sure why it's not showing up. Let's go back here. Let me make something else that's more visible. It's on the A-master page. The A-master page is applied there. And I do not see it. Well, this kind of defeats the whole purpose. Everything's not showing up here. That's not normal. So let me do for the sake of this. I don't think you're going to run into that particular problem, honestly, but I think it's something else that I've done. Okay, so here we have this. I'm going to go to the A-master page. I'm going to go down here, pretend that this is where I want my page number to be. And putting after it a dash, and before it a dash. And so now when I go to the right-hand page, there it is. So, so that's normal. I think I have something else going on that other page, but this is what we should see. So it's just an example of the folio that includes the page number with dashes on either side. I'm going to go back here and take the dashes off, and instead put a glyph in there. So if I go to Window, Type, and Glyphs, I can go down here to where these are, and I'm going to pick this little heart guy, and I think we're going to do it this way. So I put that one there on the left-hand side. I'm going to put a space between it and go to the opposite side. Come on. And go over there, and I'm going to put that one again, double-clicking it. But I want it to face the other way. So I'm going to select this letter here, and I'm going to go to something that rarely gets used, the character window. Oh, maybe that's not what it is. It is rare. So we're going to, we want to rotate this guy. We'll flip him. I know I can do this particular thing. Here we go. Oh, I have to, looks like I have to. So we have it here. And with that one, we're flipping horizontally and cutting it from there. And, all right. We want it to move as text, because if we don't, as the numbers get bigger here, this other little thing isn't going to move with it. Because if I just made it a little picture, it's not going to move with, as the number gets to be, let's say, more than one digit, it needs to expand. In 3 digits, it needs to expand. So I thought I could do this here with this particular dingbat, but maybe that's not true. So let's take a different one. I'll put, I don't know, I guess we'll use this as an example. And then, because on both sides, it doesn't have a right or left side. So what does that look like when we come out here? You see a right-hand page that has 9 like that. Let's insert some more pages. Okay, so now when we come down here, so when it's triple digits, you can see it allowed that to move because it's acting like type. Okay, now let's go back to the master pages one more time. And I talked about this, I think, early on, but I don't believe I actually did it, because I think when you first start doing this folio stuff, it can be a little confusing, because the page number, which is a variable, it changes as it, obviously, when you're on page 1 or 2 or 3 or 101, 2 or 3. So that has to be a variable. That's why it's only an A. But the other information, we want to remain constantly the same. So let's say that constant is going to be the name of the book. So I'm going to say that the name of the book is Short Stories. Okay? And I'm going to expand this. And in here on the master page, it looks like it says A Short Stories. But that's because the A is a variable. So when I come out here, it's really 103 short stories. So do I want it to mean there's 103 short stories? No. So this is a tiny example of how we treat different information differently, or why we treat different information differently. It's a part of the overall group of folio information, but one bit of information is the page number. The other bit of information is not the page number. It's the name of the book. So I have to do something typographically here to indicate that. And so I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to take the A. Come on. There we go. Just take the A, and I would normally make this a character style, right, for the folio. But in this case, I'm just going to make the it be minion. I think I'll just go bold on that. So that's going to be bold. I've given more space between here so that it's obviously a different thing. But let's take a look now and see. So now we have, here's the page number, and there's this, and it's a little more obvious that these are 2 separate things. But maybe I even want to change that more, or make it more obvious. So between these, I could either do a dash, but I don't like using dashes where they're, you know, they're not a hyphenated word, extension of something instead. So I'm going to create a bullet within the text. So this is the Option or Alt key, depending upon which platform you're on. Option key plus the 8 key. And that will create this little dot or bullet. And so now the resulting look is this. And I could say, well, that's not bad, but I want to fine tune it even more. Because if you look closely here, that dot is not right in the middle vertically. It's a little low. And so I'm going to go back one more time, fine tune this guy. And I need to zoom in close to be able to do this with any accuracy. So zoomed in close, you can really see that that's not in the middle of the baseline and the cap line. So I'm going to highlight just that character, or that dot. And I might have to give some extra space here to be able to do that. Okay, so I've got that. And now this one is in the character window. And it's this here. It's a baseline shift. So I want to bring it up slightly. And I just clicked it once in this case, and it looks to me like it's now more midway. But I'm going to click it again so you can see it's actually moving up, right? It's moving up.
Just be able to use your arrow keys on the keyboard?
You can use the arrow keys on the keyboard.
Okay.
Or I think you have to use the Option key with it, though.
Okay.
No, not true. Not true. So just here, unless there's something else that I'm missing. But I'm doing it right here to adjust that with the idea of it falling more midway. And I think 1 point is a better location. Okay, now I can also take that one little thing, and bullets most of the time are overly big. So I'm going to change the point size of this one from 12 point, which all the rest of the text is, and go down a size. And when I do that, it looks like I might even want to bring it back up one point again. Okay, so what I guess I'm trying to demonstrate here are why you might add other information, what you might do to differentiate them from one another. And of course, we can go on and on with this. We could take this, and instead of it being black, then we could make it another color, another a shade of gray. We could do any number of things. I'm going to leave it alone for the moment. We could have all of the folio information exist within a box, and especially what's this part here, it could be something like that. But I would definitely make the line weight less. Or something like that, maybe. You know, so all of those are just examples of things that you might do. And then when we look out here, see what that's looking like. Oh, okay, good. So here's an example. So that worked fine when I had a single digit here, 1 through 9. But now what's a triple digit, that graphic of the box didn't move because it's not part of the text. So that's an issue. When I look back here, any number up through 9, it should be okay. Oh, not true. Because even those, there's a difference. Or maybe I didn't. I thought I positioned it right. Maybe I moved it. But those are some examples of that. I did not show you a ruled line, though, so I probably need to do that. So back here, and I'm going to take this box out. Okay. So another another typical thing that you might find on the folio is a ruled line. And I mentioned a ruled line is also something you might use as a separator. But rarely do you want that line to go all the way across the page. The exception might be on the folio. But to be honest with you, even on the folio, a line going all the way across the page can be a problem when it comes to printing and binding. And so I want to say why. So here's this line that goes all the way across the page. Okay, and we have on the other side, we'll have another line over here that also goes all the way across the page. Well, this looks all fine and dandy here on the screen. But when we're printing it out and then binding the book together, more likely than not, one of these lines will be off. And it might not be that much, it might only be a little bit, but it's certainly distracting if we made the line go all the way across, and that results. And it will happen when we put the book together. So one reason to not do this is that, the binding, what happens in printing the pages and binding it. So rarely should you have a line, a box, a bar go all the way across. Whether this is a bar that bleeds off the bottom and the sides, but don't have something, a graphic, like a line or a box or a bar go all the way across the page, simply for the production problems. But the other reason is a design reason, that it separates this totally. This is a whole, it's a border. It totally cuts off any of this information from this down here. And that's probably not the best thing to do. So I'm going to shorten it up here. Try to anyway. Okay, so I just held the Option key down so it grew from the center, not the ends. So now I have a little separator here saying, well, this stuff down here is master page stuff, it's folio stuff, and this up here is the story. They're not confused with one and the other, but it's also not so heavy-handed of having this go all the way across. So it can be a more delicate, lighter touch with that kind of idea. But that's an example of a ruled line. Okay. All right, let's see here. All right, let's do a text wrap. So okay, so here I have a paragraph of text. And first of all, a text wrap means where there's a graphic, a photograph, any kind of image, that you have the text come up to and kind of go around it. And there's a couple different ways that that can occur. So I'll do the simplest version first. So I just get an image box, the X box, and I put that box out here. And it's important that that image box is on top of the text. So InDesign, like Illustrator, the last thing that you make is the thing that in fact is on top. So since I made this text before and now just made the X box, I know that this is on top. If you're unsure, though, you just have it selected and go to Object, and arrange and say bring to front. So since this is already in the front, that particular option was grayed out for me right now. So it's on top of the text. Has to be in the same layer and on top. So we have it selected. Then I'm going to do my place command. And let's see, I want to use this one first. So this is a JPEG version of the image. So it's in there in the text box. And so right now the text is coming up to here, but it looks like it's just being blocked off. So it's not really wrapping. It's just covered up. And so what I need to do is now go to the window of text wrap. So I get the text wrap window, and I go here and I pick one of these options. And my first option, it looks like this, where the text, in fact, if the text is on top, it just goes across the whole thing. And that's usually not what I want. So I usually want one of these other options. So if I pick this one, the text now comes down to and doesn't go over this box. It comes up to close to, but not touching this, and you're seeing all of the words, and also down below. So that's one option. This one is usually the option that gives us the best results. So it doesn't mean we have to be using an oval. It just means that it's going to come up to the image on perhaps all sides. I think that text wrap works best when it's not when it isn't right in the middle. And the reason is that here, look at how short the line lengths are on each side. It's very choppy. So I usually don't think it's a good idea to put a text wrap image in the middle of a paragraph. So instead, off to one side or the other, because then you can keep the text that is wrapping on the side longer and less choppy as a result. Okay, so I'm actually, this would be a, actually let's take this off. So a good place sometimes is to, if I have a 3-column grid, is to do something like this, where the image exists mostly in, it might exist all in that 3rd column, but on the other hand, it could be larger and wrap out into the text that's, whoops. It could, there we go. So it could do that. So now it's using a lot of the space that's out here in this 3rd column, but it's also intruding into the text, but not so much that it makes the text on the side of it too short. I want to go back to this version first, though. Okay, so I have it wrapping to a square, or I'm sorry, a straight side. I might instead want it to wrap right up to the contour of the image, the side of her head, the side of her shoulder. So to be able to do that, I can't use a JPEG. I have to bring in, if this is for print, it has to be a PSD, a Photoshop file. If it's going to be for screen application like a website or an app, then it could be a PNG, but don't use a PNG for print. So I need to change this. I didn't know I was going to text wrap the image. I've got the image here, so I'm going to go to my links window. And since I used the place command, that image will show up here. And what I want to do is select the JPEG. And it's on options. I'm going to say relink. And I'm going out here and I've already made the same file as a PSD file. So you would have to have the PSD already made. So I have it here, so I'm just switching it from the JPEG to the PSD file, saying open. And now it's, the background is now transparent. And that's the main reason to do this. We need that transparent background so that when I go in here, in the text wrap window, that I can make the contour options detect edges. And now you can see the text came in here as if it's going around the contour of the head. Okay, now the other, I'm going to show you this and then I'm going to say why or why not you might want to do it. But I'm going to say this paragraph here, or I guess I'll say all, that's fine. And I'm going to change this and I'm doing this through the regular windows right now, not the character styles, because I'm only doing it temporary to demonstrate this. Once you've created your styles, do all your editing in there. So I'm doing this through the paragraph window right now, just simply to demonstrate this other look. Okay, so at the moment, this paragraph is flush left. And you can see how it wraps around the image. If I make it flush right, it's now a more accurate following the contour, but it's too close. And I certainly don't like the flush left on that large of a paragraph. So my other option would be possibly to justify it. So now it's even on both sides, but we already know that unless I've paid attention to line length and everything else, I will create very uneven word spacing and rivers. Since I have paid attention already to the 40 to 60 characters per line, that rule of thumb, then even at justified text, I don't have really annoying rivers running through there. I still have the problem that this is too close right here, so I need to fix that. And I want an even amount of space both on the side and the bottom. So doing it on the, I'm going to do the side first. So I have my image selected, so I get the text back wrap to come up, and right here, this is an offset amount. And at the moment, there's a chain link on there. So what I do to one box will affect all four. It's the same as adjusting margins. If the chain link is there, it will adjust all to the same amount. And that's what I want in this case to begin. So I'm going to bump this up, and you can see the text starting to gradually move away from the image. And I like that space. It's called offset. Okay? And let's maybe go in a little closer. So you can, and let's turn the okay, so we're just seeing this. So, so we can see that that's now offset away from the image, but it's still not equal to what's on the bottom. So so I have the overall box, the X box, is all the way down here. And so the text wrap is going up to that on the bottom. And I don't want that. So I can either make the X box smaller. No, let's not do that. So I'm going to make this all the way up to the bottom of the image. But that didn't adjust this. And the reason that it didn't is because the bottom of the image is located kind of in between where the leading is. So I just need to move this either up or down till I get a more even amount. And to tell you the truth, I think what I need to do in this case is I'm going to move it right there. And then I'm going to go over here. No, gotta be here. Detect edges. I want to unlink these though. And another little weird. Oh, I'm forgetting something. Because I'm not able to unlink these connections here. And I want to be able to do that. Well, that's when I need to remember what I'm forgetting here. I'm forgetting something quite simple. I don't know why these aren't connecting from themselves.
Professor,
Yes.
can you go back quickly to how you, the only part that I was missing with how you did the transparent background, what did you click on to get that?
Oh, I relinked, I changed the link from a JPEG to a PSD file. And the reason is because a JPEG does not retain transparency backgrounds, but a PSD will. So we've done that before. I can demonstrate it again.
I just always forget how to do it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see, so we want, this is fine. No, this is fine. Oh, this will work. Okay, so you can see that the background here is white. It's not transparent. So what I need to do is make it transparent. The only way to do that and retain the high quality resolution for print is to make it a PSD file. So I'm going to go to Save As and make it a Photoshop file. And I'm just going to call this test. Okay, and so I say save.
So PSD means Photoshop?
PSD means Photoshop. Okay, and then now that I have this PSD file, then I can delete this background. And so you may need to do one extra step. If you look over in your, not here, my layers window is open someplace. Here it is, hiding. Okay, so your layers window of it is going to be one layer. You can see the little lock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the ideal way to do this is to unlock it first. So I just double click it so that it opens, say okay, so it closes. Now you can also just click on the lock. I'm just used to doing it that way because I learned it that before they made a change with the lock. Either way will work. Double clicking the layer to open and then just closing it, or clicking on the little lock to unlock it. either way, in either case, now I can select the white. So I'm going to select the white and hit the delete key so it goes away. So now it's a transparent background. I now update my save. It's still a Photoshop file. Okay. Okay. And so then, and that's what I placed in InDesign to do the text wrap up to the edges. Now let's say that your background is not white. So let's say that she had a bunch of things going on here. I can erase it. I can do any number of things, but maybe the image is more complicated to erase just the background. Any of those things. Remember, you're doing it so that type comes up to it and that the little letters are not capable of going in and out every tiny little hair that's on there. It does a general outline. So just remember that's the thing. So another way to do this without having to erase the background is to just be in here and use your pen or pencil tool and draw a rough line. So let's say, so I might, you know, just, why is it doing this? There we go. Okay, so with my pen tool, I might just go in here and draw, you know, a rough outline. Okay, so I have this rough outline. So I now go to paths. That must have been out here. Or where is it? Oh, it's hiding behind you guys. Okay, so yeah, so that's the path that I just made. So I can go under options and do save path, called path 1, and then say make a clipping path. So path 1 is going to be a clipping path. I say okay, and then I save it again. And save it again, and this is going to, when I go back into InDesign and my clipping mask or my text wrap options, then this path right now, right here, that's going to be the path that you just created. And let's see if that will work for me as far as I went with it. Right, place and test. Oh. Um, okay, so now text wrap, same as detect edges, and so there is the clipping mask. So I didn't think I was needed to do this particular thing here, but I did want to show you this anyway. So the other, sorry. So I've clicked on the image right now. I want it to wrap up here, and I'm going to say that I haven't created a transparent background like I did before. So yet another way, let's see if this one works for me, is I just click on that outer blue line. And I'm selecting with the white arrow those points that make up that and dragging it in. And so I'm just going to do those two right now. And no, that's supposed to go in. Yeah, that's supposed to go in there because we have it in here now. So this is not helping you really at all. And I did not at all intend to spend this much time on text wrap.
It's okay, no worries. I mean, as long as I do the other way, that's fine.
Well, I will look into it and figure out why these other things are coming up, because you would run into some of the same things, and I'm frustrated with right now. So, and I'm not even trying to do it for a project. So I will find out what that is and have some other answers for us. Okay. So let me move on here. Let me see what else that might have been all I was intending to do. Yeah, actually, that's all I was going to go over. But I do need to get that corrected for us, and I will do that. Okay. So I'm going to unshare here, unless you want me to stay here and go over something while I'm here. Could be anything. It doesn't have to be this.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I have loaded all of my text. Now, I did not set up, like, say, the 3 columns or any of that prior to. Would it be best for me to just to start over and do it from the beginning? Like, you know, because right now my pages just look like, you know, like it's just filled to the margins with text.
Yeah. Well, this is a good question, Jay. And if you have large amounts of text in there, which if you put in all of your stories, you have a large amount of text. Mm-hmm. So to be honest with you, it's easier to delete that and create the basic format first. On the other hand, you can change it once you've got all the text in there. You just have to be willing to then size the text that you have in there. So let's say, for example, let me turn my 3 back on again. You don't have to have 3 columns, by the way. Mm-hmm. But I would suggest an uneven number, and 3 I believe is the most useful. But let me, let's turn just the baseline grid back on. And I think that, why am I not? Just some weird things are going on here. I had 3 columns.
Because then once we're kind of establishing, say, for page or page per page or story per story, like the text, the paragraph may be in different, start in different places somewhat. Like say if like, yeah, just that, like page for page.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so my program seems to be doing some oddball things to me because, you know, obviously we had 3 columns here before because that's why things are set up that way. But right now it's showing that there's only 1 column there. Oh, and I do need to do this on the master pages. And it's still just saying 1. So I don't know why that changed unless I accidentally hit it, which is possible, I suppose. But at this point, I would change this to 3, you know, or whatever. Now, since I already have it in there, and if I did it now, we're not going to see the result here on the text that I have in, or already input. So I'm going to change it to something other than 3. Let's make it so that it is 1 column. And I say, okay. So I come back out here now to where my text is, and I need to reflow it to a single column. Let's take this off. So now what I need to do is go in on each page and, in fact, resize this, and that's going to reflow everything. So you just have to do that on each page. Now, again, I strongly recommend that you first set up your margins and everything on your master page before going further. You can do it either way. It just takes a whole lot longer. So if I start out in here by adjusting my margins according to the Fibonacci number series and the number of columns I want, and then bring the text in, it's just smoother.
So again, with the margins, can you explain, so say on that, on the master page, the right page,
yeah,
the inside margin is, so is that, you need to set that to be wider as well as the left inside page, like for it to be continual throughout the book?
I think you're basically on the right track there. But let me say it again. I don't think you're alone in wanting to know the reasons for the changes of sizes of margins here. So I'm going to say it first, the conceptual part. None of the tech business, none of that, and just so that we can think of it visually. What is our goal? So the analogy I suggested to all this was, think of this like you might be putting a mat around a drawing. And so if we think of it that way, we always, not always, but the majority of the time we have the bottom margin the widest. And then we might have all of the other 3 margins, the left side, right side, and top equal. Or we might have the bottom is the most, the top is a little less, and the sides are equal. And then in the case of a book, we have a variation of this, but we have a right and a left page. So now instead of saying the right margin and left margin, we say outside margin and inside margin. So the inside margin is a weird animal, because even when we say the inside margin is equal to the outside margin, that amount of space is actually doubled up because we have a margin next to a margin. Right? So even though the setup right now the inside margins and outside margins are the same number. I'm just going to say 1. So there's 1 inch here and there's 1 inch here. There's 1 inch here and 1 inch on the other side on the left. But together, this 1 inch and this 1 inch visually say 2 inches. There's 2 inches of space between any text that would be on this page and 2 inches in the text on that side, right? So even though the margins, the way they're set up, are equal, visually it results in a wider space in the gutter. You with me on that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So so we have to keep that particular thing in mind, just in general. Now, the other thing we have to keep in mind is how the book is going to work as an object, not seeing it just on the screen, but the physical book we hold in our hand. And we know that when we open a book, that the pages are held together in the middle and they come up and fold out towards us, right? And so because of that folding out kind of thing, some of the physical piece of paper is actually hidden in the fold. It's hidden in the gutter. And that problem gets to be greater the more pages we have in the book. Your book, all of your book, is going to not be the thickest book ever made, but it's going to be a normal size thickness of a book. It's probably going to be maybe 1 inch or perhaps a little wider, depending upon the physical size of your book, but it's going to be around 1 inch thick. So there will be some disappearing of the paper as it goes into the gutter. So for that reason, we do want the inner space, the overall space, to be a little bit wider than the overall space on the outer margin. So the question now becomes, by how much? How much wider should it be? And again, I keep in mind that even if I make them the same amount on both inside and outside, it's in effect doubling the space in the gutter. Yeah?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So we're now moving from the conceptual side of things into the actual physical setting of it up. So there are 2 places that you can do this, but the best place is to go on the master page. Either set it up in the original document setup if you know ahead of time, which we rarely do. So we do it now that we've got something going. We kind of like the look of it. So now we're going to adjust the margins. So I picked this page. Oh, in fact, from what I just said there, so to get a look that you think you like, you might just bring in 1 story and play around with what type choices that you want, the amount of leading, you know, how you apply diminuendo, that kind of thing. So you're working with something on 1 story only, okay? And then once you've got that look that you want, then you apply those margins to the master pages and then bring in your other stories. Okay, so at any rate, we're pretending we have a look that we like. So we're now going to the layout, margins, and columns. And in there, we decide we want 3 columns. And we also decide how much space we want in the margins. So we know we want the bottom to be heavier. And so we're trying to figure out these others. And what I've suggested to us on this, is, I've done more than suggest, I said we need to apply the Fibonacci number series to our margins on this assignment. Does that mean all books have the Fibonacci number series of proportion applied to their margins? No, the answer is no. And that's for 2 reasons. One is there are other ways, other methods to determine harmony with space, with composition. But the most common is the person who's doing that doesn't care or doesn't know. They're not a good designer. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you do need to have some system of determining relative proportion between all the elements on the page. And the golden section, as expressed by the Fibonacci number series, is the easiest way to do that. As complicated as it seems, it is the easiest way to determine. So uh, I'm not going to repeat the entire Fibonacci number
Right. Yeah,
lesson. Okay, but I am going to apply it. So we're going to say that we're going to start with the second one in the series. So the series would be, if we don't count the first one, it's 1, 2, 3, 5, and so forth. So I'm going to apply the 1 to the, we're on the right-hand page here. So I'm going to select both pages and go to margins and columns. And maybe that's still do it. But I'm going to make the top one. I'm going to the left 2, so that would be 6 picas, and the right also 2, so it also is 6 picas, and the bottom is going to be 3 or 9. So how I get that there? 1 times 1, whatever this number is 1. So 2 would be whatever that number is times 2, and 3 would be whatever that number is times 3. So that's what I've got. I say okay, and I look out here, and now I can see the result of it. Here's 1, 2, and 3 on the bottom. Notice that 2 side-by-sides give us more space in the middle, or gutter. Okay? So it looks, that in that case, that's the application, the way it looks here. That's with the inside and outside margins being equal, but it still results in more space in the gutter. Does that help a little bit?
Yes.
I can repeat any part there that's not.
Say again.
I can repeat any part in there if it's not.
Oh no. So like the issue that I had with mine was when I had the half page layout like that, the 8 whatever the numbers are. I didn't have it on PO, and it was like stuck on inches, and it was saying that and so the margin was too big for the page.
Oh, got it. Okay, so remember, if you go in InDesign preferences and units and increments,
Okay.
change it to picas or points and points, either one here. Okay.
So picas is points, pretty much.
Yeah. You know, to be honest with you, vertical should be in points and horizontal should be in picas. Because type is measured in points, and we're talking about its vertical height. So to continue that idea, it makes sense that the vertical is in points and horizontals in picas. I don't typically introduce it that way because now you have to juggle 2 versions of measurement that you really aren't comfortable with yet. So for that reason, I just say, let's keep them both the same, in this case, picas, and that way the numbers that you see show up there look like this, the 0, P, and a number. So the 0, in this case, that's the number of picas. The one after the P is the number of points. Again, 12 points equal a pica.
Okay.
Okay?
Picas. And that was under the InDesign preferences?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if you forget to do that and you want it in a different measurement for one thing, you can simply just write in after it, put in 12 and say PT, or if you're trying to make it inches, say 12 and IN.
Right, yeah, no. Okay. All right, so that was it. It's like I have say things in there, but I'm like, should I start working on my paragraph design now or go back and do columns and all that good stuff? And okay, so got that. All right, I think that's everything that I needed pretty much.
Okay.
Well, I'll have more questions.
To get us to the next step. I think that in general, if we always think of this stuff of doing the intuitive part first, and then setting up columns, margin spaces, leading, any of those things, do that to fine tune it, but do it first intuitively. You know, just put text in there, but I would do it with one story, the shortest story, and play around with the look, the typeface that you want to use, and so forth. Then once you've got that look, then you need to, probably the very, very first thing to do is to create the baseline grid based on or tied to your leading. And whatever your leading is no doubt has a fraction in there. The most common default leading is 14.4, but for text type. Well, we don't want to use a fraction. So the rule of thumb I've given you is to go to the next highest whole even number.
15.
So if it's 14.4, the next whole even number is 16. That's a minimum. You could go to 18.
Oh, you say it's
Yeah, you don't have to go just stop at just the next one. That's a base to start from. It's the next highest whole even number.
okay.
Then that sets up your leading, that sets up your grid, that would set up the size of your margins, all of that stuff.
So that's 16 point, you said baseline grid?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So your baseline grid's based on your leading.
And that's all in the layout as well, right?
How do you mean?
So as far as at the top of the page, when I'm setting all the
Oh, under that part? Well, no, the grids are created under preferences and grids.
okay.
So in there, you want to make it start from the margin. This should be 0. So starting at 0 from the top margin, coming down 16 points.
Okay.
And then down here, it should also be 16 points with one subdivision. So if 12 points equal a pica, 1p4 is equal to 16 points.
Okay, hold on, don't change that yet. So this is under grid.
I think this is on our page.
Okay.
It's also in one of the previous lectures.
Okay, I think when I printed that out, I think it didn't. Some of that didn't come up or something. Okay. So
You print? What did you print out?
the whole what do you call it? The instructions for this project, and then some of the things that were in blue didn't print out.
Oh, right. But this particular thing I did in a different lecture that I recorded, and it's on the Canvas.
Oh, okay.
So make sure you look through those.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Third.
All right. So I'm going to come out here. So the rest of you guys, could you update me where you're at? What kind of questions you have? Maybe just update.
I could start.
Sorry?
I could start like,
Okay, yes, please. Yeah.
so like so far I have like all of my stories in, and I'm still like having to change the character style for each one, and like the paragraph styles as well.
So you're creating different paragraph styles and character styles for each story?
No, like it's gonna be the same like across the board, but like I still have to like change the text and things like that.
Oh, okay. I think I'm understanding. So, yeah, if you, part of it might be similar to what I mentioned to Jay, and that is with one story, probably the first story, determine the look that you want, the character, and develop the character styles, and then the paragraph styles for that story. Once you have them, it'll be a piece of cake to apply them to your other stories, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, you're right then. That's the way to do it. Okay, and so that's where you're at. You're at that step. Do you have any questions about how to create the character or paragraph styles?
Like so far, like they figured out how to do that, but like, would it be possible to apply that to like multiple paragraphs at once, like rather than like one at a time?
You can do Command A that will select the entire story, or if you just want to select, in fact, it'll select all your text if they're threaded together, which they should be. On the other hand, if you just want to select certain paragraphs in a row, if you click in front of the very first letter of the story and then go to the maybe it's 2 pages after that and hold the shift, keep the shift key down and click on another word on this third page, and it'll select all the text between where you first clicked and where you shift clicked the second time. Did that make sense the way I explained that?
Yeah.
Because I can demonstrate it. Let's see. Okay, so we've got this, and it's going to be threaded over to here. And oh, I'm on the master pages. That's fine. So okay, so I have just placeholder text all the way across here. This could be on the 4th or 5th page down the line. And I want to select from here to here. So I clicked there. I'm holding the shift key down. I'm going to click there. And it's now selected all of this text up to that point. Okay, so I didn't have to drag across it. I just clicked, held the shift key down, and clicked at the end point, or the last word that I wanted to select. Okay? Melanie, you good there?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay. Somebody else? Yes.
I'm basically at the same place as Melanie, you know, just kind of like fixing like the little things, adding paragraph styles. I did notice yesterday when I was making my thing, my little story article, my sister, she noticed that I was doing a lot of things wrong. She's like, it's just lack of experience and you don't really know what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, I really don't. So she made me like restart a whole new document. Well, she didn't make me, I wanted to because it would make my life easier. And she like kind of sat me through all like the setting up of the grid and everything because I did everything wrong. And so now I think I'm on the right track. But yeah, at least right now I'm like, I think where I left off was like the paragraph styles and the character styles. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, a couple of things. One is that Crystal got the opportunity to do 3 or 4 assignments before doing this one.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, she's doing Calliope, so that's the major application of it. So that's great that she was able to help you there. But I also want, I'm curious about what parts that you felt you were doing backwards or harder.
The margins was like my main issue. None of the text was aligned. I wasn't really going along with the grid. I didn't think about that for some reason. And it was mainly like the margins and like all the pages I had already put in, there was like over 80 or something. So it would be like very tedious to go back and like fix them individually. Yeah. So just so everything would fall into place from the beginning, I felt the need to like start a new document. So like I had all the margins set in place and like I used the master pages and I was able to fix it that way instead of having to do everything manually, which is what I was having to do because I wasn't doing it correctly.
Okay, so I wouldn't be too harsh on yourself there. I think that this is part of the learning, the process. I really do. I'm not kidding with that one. I think that that's part of the process. So you do it one way, and then you try to incorporate all these things I'm throwing at you, and then and so you're learning those individual things, and at some point, oh, okay, now I kind of get why I'm doing this. I should have done it though a step or two earlier. So then coming to that realization is a very, very important step. And so then starting over in this case means a slightly different thing than, oh, I failed and now I have to completely redo it. That isn't what this means here. It means that, oh, now I have a better understanding of what I should do and when I should do it. And it's going to be easier for me to do that if I simply take the text out and bring the text in again. So that's okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong or bad about that. It's just a step in the learning curve.
Yeah, and I definitely did feel better knowing that all the base work was done correctly and I knew what was actually going on instead of just like blindly relying on my intuition to like fix the things and make it look correct. But yeah, I did feel a lot better when I restarted it, and now I feel like I'm on the right track.
Oh, that's great. That's good to hear. Yeah. Okay. Any tips you want to pass along?
I think the biggest one for me was don't be afraid to restart. I mean, because I was like, oh my gosh, you know, it's almost the end of the semester. I have so much homework to do, but I just felt like just restart. It feels like it's gonna make everything better. I felt like it did because I had made so many mistakes before, and like one thing that I learned the hard way was that every little thing that you do there counts, and it like makes everything different. So I think if you have like a fresh start, it's a lot better than just trying to like, because sometimes you get too attached to what you have, and then it's really hard to restart because you're like, no, I've done all this work, but it just makes your life so much easier when you do restart.
Yeah, it's trusting yourself. You should feel good about that. That's really nice. It's part of a growing confidence level. It's a part. I'm laughing at Jasmine. It's a part of a confidence level. It's part of learning. It's part of understanding the process and trusting in the process. And we place so much emphasis on the final product all the time that we tend to start to be reluctant to allow ourselves that the value of the process. You know, and I really believe in that. I'm not just saying that here. It's extremely important. It's a way that you can leave this project or any project and not feel like, oh, I'm glad I'm done with that. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't want you to feel that way. I want you to learn something from this, that as you go forward, you feel more confident in trying to apply some of these things. One of the things that absolutely happens is when you get out of school and you're working as a designer and you feel like you have no time, you would have had like this book assignment to do one of these stories. You might maybe have an afternoon, if that, you know, an afternoon is probably pretty normal if you were doing one of these stories, and the whole book maybe a week at the most. And so how do you get it done that quickly? So you find out really early on what your personal standards are. And so some things, it's like you might even have in the back of your head, oh, I know I'm supposed to do something with the baseline grid, but I can't remember how to do it. And I start panicking. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. You know, do it without that. No one will notice. And then it's, well, I know that I was supposed to do something else with this diminuendo thing, but I'm just going to make a big first letter because no one will notice. And the margins, I'm just going to make them all equal because nobody cares. See what I'm doing here? See, all this stuff is, you know, our own standards, because as we keep up the standards of design, we not only do what it's supposed to do, help people read more things more easily, more completely, comprehension goes up, all of that is good stuff. You will never get credit for it. You know, no one's ever going to come to you and say, wow, I like that book because of the way you did the typography. Not going to happen. So it's totally about your own good feeling, your own good standards, and being proud of doing good design. And so back to this, the reality check is out there when we're on our own. If we've not allowed ourselves to start over perhaps at some version of the process in school, we certainly aren't going to allow ourselves to do that when we're out there working and we have these deadlines that are real tight. So what we want to do to get prepared for that is allow ourselves to start over if necessary, keep standards high, try to meet those standards as best that we can, try to learn from them, do whatever it does that we can do personally to help remember these things, create our own little resource list, checklist, whatever it might be. I'm a firm believer in those checklist things. That's why I give you the type variable stuff. Because I don't remember them all, you know? And so I can quickly refer to those and, oh, yeah. And I'm back at it again. But I think the part I really want to refer to here is the ability to have confidence in, oh, now I get how something is going. I just need to start it over rather than continuing to try to undo and redo what I've currently got, even though I've spent time on it. And that confidence in the process, knowing that the end result is going to be better, that's an important thing. So to allow us to do that in a shortened period of time, I need to learn key commands. I need to have these resources that I've developed for myself that I can refer to very quickly. Well, I suppose there's other things too, but I think those two go quite a long way in helping trust the process and still cut down on time. Okay, but thanks for telling us that, Paul. Somebody else? Yes, Madison.
So right now I have the first story in, and I'm going through it, like trying to do mods and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I need to watch some videos because, like, in class it's kind of hard to follow along since I can't follow along. So I'm just kind of like watching it and it's just going out one year.
It gets to be oversaturation at some point.
Yeah.
Which parts are maybe the ones that are the most confusing for you right now?
It just seems like it's easier on Adobe because all the buttons are right there, so you know which one it is. But then on InDesign, it's all up top, kind of about where everything is hidden. So.
The menus or the windows?
Yeah.
So let me share our screen again. Let me close these first. Okay, so I want to view. We'll stay there. So one of the things that you should know is that up here under Window, you can arrange these in different ways here. And also under Workspace, you have some other optional ways that will pull some things out. And one of the ways that might work for us better here on this particular assignment is to click on the Typography Workspace, because that one is going to pull some windows more readily than other workspaces might. That's up to you, but if part of the thing that's different is where InDesign locates things that is different from Illustrator, which you're now more familiar with, then you might try one of or both of those options here of how things are showing up here or not. So the control window right now let's see. And I think, and this might change. I'll try to. So now I'm seeing things arranged this way. I guess you get my point, though, right? You have those two options to change the way things look. Is there something else, though, that we can talk about here that would be helpful?
Right, it just like remembering where things are, because for example, like those extra characters, you have to go for like all the different like places to find it, and you have to remember which one does what thing. So it learning each place.
I'll tell you, one of my biggest frustrations with both Illustrator and InDesign is that certain things that I feel should belong together are not together.
Yeah.
So for example, under Window, I have some controls for type down here, but I also have the type part from the main window that have these things.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, I try to learn the key commands for these, as opposed to trying to remember where they're located.
Yeah.
So so the shift command, in this case F11, is a very complex goofball kind of key command. It's not that helpful for me, but I typically have the paragraph and character styles open all the time in InDesign. I'm usually not trying to close them.
Yeah.
But other ones like the Glyphs palette, again, very weird key combination. Maybe the tabs one is a better example. So that's an easy key command, to shift Command T to give me the tabs window. I don't memorize where that is, but I also don't leave it open most of the time. You know, I have it open for one thing and then I close it. So I guess maybe what I'm suggesting is as many key commands that you can start to get used to for the things you use most often. That might be helpful.
Yeah, because I know I use like Control Z a lot, even with outside of Adobe. So
Yeah. It's one of the most useful ones, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody else? Gavin.
So for the cover page or title page,
Yeah.
I think on the thing you said have it in a separate document, right? Or
The
is
cover.
or do you mean,
The cover.
yeah. So like, can I still set it up like in the same document?
It would be better to not. I'm talking about the cover of the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not the title page. The title page, yes, the part of here. It's a page in the book, but
Okay.
the cover of the book is typically a separate document because it needs to wrap around a physical object. You know, it's not part of the pages of the book itself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, good question.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question about that as well. Like I started that cover page, but you're saying so it should be just an extra page added before the master page as a title page.
Yeah. So there's a title page, a full. Its full name is a full title page, because there's also a half title page as an element of front matter. For our book, there because we don't have a number of these other things, a half title page and a full title page essentially would look the same, and you're not going to have a whole bunch of front matter. So the necessity of a full title page and a half title page, one of the biggest reasons is there's a lot in the book where one occurs, or where they both occur. There's typically a whole bunch of front matter, meaning they might have a dedication page, a table of contents that's several pages long, They might have illustrations page, publishers page, all of that stuff. So when I open the book, at first I might see a full title page, then I see the front matter, then I see a half title page before the story begins. In our case, you're only going to have a table of contents. You might have a dedication page, any of those other kinds of pages that you want to design to have in your book, that's fine. But you're certainly not going to have like 10 pages of front matter. So there's no reason to have both a half and a full title page. So the question becomes, what do I need to have on the full title page? And it basically, you're going to have the name of the book. You need to title it. And I've been suggesting that that title be a combination of a practical title and a subtitle. So, or either reverse that, sorry, that the title of the book is a bit more provocative. It's a bit more poetic. And that the subtitle tells us what it is. So as an example of that, maybe the title of my book here of short stories, the title is called Zodiac. It's the theme of them. And then the subtitle is what it is, a collection of short stories. So my title page is going to say Zodiac, a collection of short stories edited by Brett DeBoer. Okay, that's basically all I'm going to have on there. Now I might include, if you do the illustrations, then I might also say illustrated by, as well. Okay, so that would be an example of the full title page. And that is a page in the InDesign document, yes. The cover of the book, which essentially has the same information that I just said, that's a separate document because it includes, we've done dust jacket assignments before. So has the front, it's a document that includes 5 panels: the front of the book, the spine of the book, the back of the book, and both inside flaps. Okay.
But I don't think everybody's done the books.
No, not everyone has done that assignment, but I think we've all seen a dust jacket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to do one for this assignment?
You do not have to do a dust jacket, no, but we need a cover of the book. And it gives you another option. It gives you another option of how to treat that information, but it also gives you another option for showing your design skills.
Professor Harry, how are we treating the author on there again?
You have a couple of options, and it's up to you as the designer. So let's say you are not the author of the book, for one. You are either comprised, short stories comprised by, or you are the editor, but you're not the author.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, because I was like, I left it blank for now because I wasn't sure how to do it.
Oh, well, where the authors occur are in 2 places.
Well, they're in each in every story.
And in the table of contents.
Yeah, which I haven't done yet, but it's.
Yeah. Don't do the table of contents yet because we're going to do that in a special way.
Yeah, well, and I made the mistake of the last book I made. I did that, and then when I moved things around, and then I forgot to go to it later and change that, so then my numbers were messed up, so I'm not even going to touch that till later.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to look at, or if you have done a table of contents in the past, you can certainly go ahead, but usually a table of contents is not created until the end anyway. And what it does is the table of contents reads your character styles and also your auto page numbering, and that way it's set up that way, both the look and as you continue to edit the book and text reflows, it will know if a new story is now beginning on a different page than what you originally had. It'll update itself. So that I think I've put some links to that on our page. I would be surprised if I haven't. But so if you want to start seeing how that works, you can. I don't know how far you can get with it until you have your stories all in there, but you certainly can look at it. Someone else? Okay, some of you I can't see, so I'm only guessing if you're totally understanding or not. So I'm
I've
going to
got a
start.
question.
Yes, thanks, Noah.
Can I share my screen?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Oh, it says host disabled screen sharing.
Oh, sorry, I haven't done that yet, have I? All right, try it now.
Okay. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about my margins. If you can see right here, are these acceptable? Are these following the Fibonacci ratio?
No, because they're all equal right now.
Well, this one here in the corner is 3. I'm not sure if
sorry.
that's
No, but
Fibonacci.
it's the start of it. But what you've done is you've picked 6 for 3 of the margins.
Okay.
So an example here would be to either go to the bottom one at 9, or do do the inside and outside both at 3, and the top 6 and the bottom's 9.
Okay. So if I were to change bottom to 9.
The 9 would be one way.
And then inside be 3, that would be one way to do that.
That would be yet a fourth way. So you could change just the bottom to 9, or you could change just the inside. I guess you already did it, to 3. Or you could change the inside to 3 and the bottom to 9, which is what you currently have. So any of those are versions of that, of applying that. Make sure we're doing it on the master pages. And then and so what I'm saying is it's a flexible system. You know, it's a system of proportion. You decide how you and where you want to apply that system. The other guide I'm giving us is this analogy of how we mat a drawing. And then the other clue I've given us is the practical thing that happens when we have a book that opens up and pages in the middle, part of those parts of the paper disappear because they're held together by the binding. So it typically does need to be wider than the outside, but there's a trick involved with that, because we have 2 side-by-side margins, which will in fact double the amount of space. You can see it right here, right? Instead of that inside margin being 6, the inside space is actually 12, right? The space between the type.
Right.
Okay, so that means that even if we make the inside margins in the document setup the exact same number as on the outside, the result, the physical effect on the space, will be double that on the inside, because it's 2 margins next to one another.
Okay.
Okay, so the short answer is that you can apply the series however you would like. Use the analogy of matting a drawing as a guide. Use the idea that 2 margins together in the gutter will double the actual number that you have put in the document setup box. And maybe the third one, which I didn't really say this way, or the last one would be, that as far as using the number series, you really just have to have 3 changes. You know, if it's just one number repeated 3 times, that we couldn't call that a part of the system.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
There we go.
Selma? How are we doing out there?
Um, I'm. It's working along. I just need to kind of, yeah. I finished everything on. Sorry, I have like no sense of language. Okay. I did the Word document and like just edited and like fixed the spellings, grammar, etc. The stories I picked are very not edited, so
Are these different stories? These are different stories, right?
yeah. So I don't know. And so I fixed that stuff and I put it inside. So that was a big thing for me because now I did that part. I put it inside. My only problem is it won't like stop highlighting the words. I don't know if like you already talked about it or if it's because I did kind of like look around. I didn't find it anywhere. Like if that was a thing or if that's just like my problem because I just didn't use InDesign ever and it's just like a small little technical, but it won't stop. Sorry about all the drilling.
Let me make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So when you bring those stories and flow them into InDesign, it's staying highlighted. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so one of them is not highlighted. I don't know how. Like I tried
Well,
looking back as to how that one's not highlighted,
I
but
know.
everything else, like it's all highlighted and I can't find anything that unhighlights them.
Okay. I think it's because you're using a typeface that isn't in InDesign.
Yeah,
So try
that's
to change the typeface.
okay. Because I mean that was true, but then when I was like putting it in, it asked me to change it, so I did change it. So I could still try doing that, but I did change it when I brought it in.
Can you
Just
share your screen?
yes. One sec. And I could also check if it ended up changing or not, but
Oh, oh. Selma, are you still? Are you okay there? I'm not
yeah,
seeing.
I'm here.
Oh,
Sorry.
I thought maybe we.
I could share my screen. However, that's exactly what the problem was.
Oh,
I don't
great.
know if you really want me to share. Yeah.
Wish everything
Right.
was that easy.
Yeah,
Good.
no, because I would have done that. However, I just when I had changed it, when I had brought it in, it was telling me that it wasn't the there was that font or whatever wasn't inside InDesign. So I changed it. So I'm assuming that this was the new font, but apparently it was not.
Okay, so that's gone away then now, and you're
Yeah.
okay. All right. So we
Thank
have
you.
you've done a major part there in keyboarding in new stories and correcting them. So that's huge that you've gotten that far. And yes, you should feel good about getting to that point. So now we want to
I have
start.
way more to do, but I kind
Yeah,
of gave up when I on the Word documents. I was like, if anything's left, I'll do it. I'll do it in InDesign.
yeah, yeah. And I have to say that, again, kind of back to a little bit of what I was talking about early on with Paula, that being willing to do that extra work because of the standard that you want or the content that you want, that's great. It's good. So I'm happy to hear that. What that does though, it's prevented you from moving further along with the design part. So now you're at the stage where you can do those things, and I want to make sure that you know how to go forward from this point.
Oh, did you guys hear that? Okay, I heard that.
No, it's dinging here. The fries are done.
Okay. I tried, like I finished earlier today putting all the text in. So like I kind of tried doing a little bit of, like I tried doing the folio. Is that what it's called? The bottom?
Yes,
Yeah.
with the
Okay.
page numbers.
Yeah. I'm having a super tough time with it. Like
Okay.
I realized like the designing part of it, obviously like the word is just spelling stuff. I learned that in kindergarten. I'm kidding. But anyways, but like yeah, this I think is because I never used InDesign. I'm pretty sure like most of us, but yeah, I think like I just need to go back into like the recordings and also just I've been looking through the website and so I'm pretty sure I'll get it. I just need to look through all that stuff. But yeah, it's a little tough. I have to like really it's not like an easy just handle, but I think I could get it once I'm
Okay. Okay. Well, let me just give you a few little tips with the folio, because once you have that, I think you'll just breeze right along. So do it on the master pages. And you click with the type tool, it could be any place, and make a little text box. And then you're going to, under type, you go all the way down to the bottom of insert special character, and then it's going to the right of that and picking current page number. So it's kind of buried. But if you do that, then it'll show up and it'll make an A, because it's going to be on the A master page. And that is what will allow you to see the page numbers. Anything additional, like I did at the start of today, that you want as a part of the folio, you just make it there like you normally would. You know, and then those things will show up on the page, like a ruled line, like a dot on either side of the number, an additional word, any of that. Okay.
Okay, that helps a lot actually. I've been trying to do that. I seen that that was how you do it, but my problem was it wasn't like in the special characters, the current page number wasn't showing, and that was because I was doing the selection tool instead of the type tool. And you just thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
I
you
couldn't
go.
find that anywhere.
Yeah, because it's typed. Yeah.
Yeah, because it wouldn't. I could see it, like I would go everywhere, but then right when the current page number, it wouldn't show as an option. It would be like gray instead of black. You know, when it's like
Right.
not an option there.
'Cause it's typed. Remember, you're adding typographic elements.
Yeah, so that works. Just a quick question. I'm sorry if you already talked about this before. The folio goes underneath the like you know like the margins we already have.
Yes.
It goes underneath it. Like it doesn't go in those margins, right? Sorry.
Excellent question.
I'm pretty sure.
It can or it might not. But here's the reason to have it below. When you're seeing it on the master page, you're not seeing anything else. You're not seeing any story there. The story, however, on the actual pages where the page numbers appear, there'll be text there. So the text, if you put the folio up in above the margin, you're going to have part of your story perhaps run right over the top of it. That'd be the worst case. But another thing that can happen is if you put it in the same typeface, same size and everything as your story, and it's there, it'll seem like it's part of the story. And it could even do that even if you put it below the margins. So what you want to do is have a character style that is related to but different from your story text applied to the folio page numbers, and put that folio information below or in the margin.
Okay.
Okay, and that's whether it's to the side or the top or the bottom. Don't put it in the same text block where your story is actually going to go, and also don't make it the same look as the typographic look that you've made for your story. I tend to like to treat the display type for titles, subtitles, and folio all based on the same look, and treat the text look to include the story, pull quotes, and captions. That's the way I approach it design-wise. You might decide to apply the design look in a different way, but just to give you something to work with, that's the way I do it. I have the folio information based on the same typeface that I use for the other display type, even though the folio information is tiny. But I certainly don't want it to have the same look as the story. That's the main point.
Okay, so it could be can it be the same font though, still? Or would it be a different font considering it's a different look?
Well, remember typeface and font, there's two differences. I'm trying to use them technically in the correct manner. I'm not interchanging them. The words don't mean the same. So the typeface family that I pick for display type is, the way I do it is I choose a sans serif typeface normally for display type, and I use a serif typeface family for the text type. So in the text type category, I include the story, captions, pull quotes. For the display type category, I pick a typeface family and apply it to the title, the subtitle, and the folio information. Now within each of those categories, I change the font. So the font, so for the story, and stay with the story, the text type for a minute. I said I use normally a serif typeface for the text type category. But I vary the font, perhaps by size, perhaps by weight, perhaps by whether it's italicized or not, or case, whether it's small caps or regular. I make those variations of font within the typeface family for each of the categories, for display type or for text type.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's a tough one. But if you think about it, there are two families. You know, I've got the cousins that are going to be the folio information. I've got the twins that are going to be in the titles. You know, it's that kind of thing, but it's the same family. Then I have a different family for the text stuff. And again, I have cousins maybe that are going to be the story, and I have a great uncle that's going to be the captions and that kind of thing.
It's a big family, but we get it. Well, yes.
Okay. Clara, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Yeah. What stage are you at?
Page.
A stage. What?
Page. I was like, oh. I'm like at the same stage as Melanie. Like I have everything like laid out. I'm just focusing on like editing everything and like working on the spacing and stuff and like the styles.
Okay, so you've got your margin set up. You've got your baseline grid set up.
Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah, I just like yeah, basically I just really need to sit down and like focus on it and like take my time on it because I've been like doing it for a little bit and then stopping and doing it again. So
yeah, well, this beginning part is setting the stage. It's setting up the overall margin. It's setting up the look. It's setting up the document styles. It's setting this up. Once you have those things all, you know what role they're going to play, how they're going to look, they're going to be loud or soft or big or small or whatever. Now you can apply them. Finally, you know, you can apply them and see the result of all that hard work, because there's no getting around it. This beginning part of setting everything out, that's the work part. Applying it is cool and fun, because once you apply it, if you don't like it, you just do another click and you can change the whole look. Boom, it's almost magic. You know, woohoo. At some point I have to show you my newest magic trick I learned. It's magically cutting a banana. fascinating. So we'll have to wait till a while back. Oh, maybe I can do it as a Zoom. I don't know. I haven't tried that. So anyway, you're doing good. Okay. Jess, how are you doing? Jessica?
She's asleep.
Jess, wake back up. I know you're there.
I'm here. Oh, I'm sorry.
That was fantastic. Did you plan that?
So my sister just got home, so I'm still at her house with her kids and stuff, and it was just a lot during class. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, because they were my niece dressed up as like Elsa, and then she'll start singing like Frozen, and then she just started like I don't know, and I was just like, this is literally happening throughout class. I was just like, well, this is great, but it was very eventful. My update right now is that I just collected like the articles I was gonna use for the book, and I'm just like inserting them into like Microsoft Words just to see like how much I have to correct. And then when I wrote one of them, I was like, oh, this is a lot to correct. And so,
Okay.
and yeah, so that's kind of like my update right now, just because like I'm just collecting them and I'm like slowly editing them and stuff. I just been babysitting lately, so I haven't been like really updating too much about it. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a cautionary tale for you here. You are a little behind.
Yeah, I was gonna play catch up like this week.
Say that one again.
I was gonna play catch up this week, as in like I was gonna get myself caught up with everything.
Yeah, and I think a little bit according to related to what I said when we first started. You know, it's a very stressful situation we're in. And so to get through this in a healthy way is the most important thing. And if that means you have to take some breaks, if you have to do some stretches, if you have to do anything that helps you, some Zumba, whatever, you know, you then you need to do that. And but you also need to keep in mind the big picture, the big goal here, and then manage your time in a healthy way, but also in a way that's going to let you finish things with something that you're proud of. And that's a kind of a delicate balance to a certain degree. But it is my job also to point out if I think you're a little behind or not, and because I don't want you to have the end of the semester be so darn stressful that it's really not good at all. And so that's my reason for pointing that out to us right now. But I also want to know that, okay, this weekend or this week, I'm not, don't wait till the weekend, but this week that you're going to, you know, kind of concentrate on it more. So I want to know, do you have a pretty good idea of what to do, how to make that happen? You just need to do it?
Yeah, I honestly just need to like fixing up more and like double checking with like articles and stuff right now. And then like I mean, I'm almost like pretty much kind of done editing them, but I'm just like slowly doing it and going back just to like make sure they're all like good. And then like I'm just kind of building up like step by step, slowly like how to organize it and how to like lay it out and stuff on the pages in InDesign.
Okay, have you worked with InDesign before?
A little bit. I've just been like, there are some things that I forgot, but I've been looking back in like the recordings and stuff, just basically like how to like formatted it and start it out and everything. So I worked with it only like a little bit, but I've been looking at like the videos that you pre-recorded from before as reference, and I've been looking at the website and stuff too to see like what, like if I'm missing anything or just to follow it step by step.
Okay, well, I think that those links and hopefully the recordings as well are helpful to you. We still could run into some little issues like earlier in this one, I was getting frustrated because some oddball things were showing up there that I have to look into. And so that will happen to all of us. And so I think checking the links on the pages and the videos certainly, I think, will go a long way to helping you. Do jot down any questions or anything that still might pop up, though, that we can maybe visit about. Okay?
Yeah, for sure. My only one right now. I mean, it was already like solved, but it was just like, oh, we include like the cover and the back cover of like the book inside like the pages in InDesign. But then I checked on the website and it said like it's on a different
Different
one.
document, yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, my only question for now. But if I do have more, I will like email you and let you know.
Okay, okay, all right.
Mhm.
Woods,
Right now, I have all my text in there.
yes.
I actually put some glyphs there, but I think I want to change it. But like I'm at that stage right now. I think I have to go back and make sure all the paragraphs are separated correctly. But that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, and you've worked with InDesign before?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so for you, I'm gonna hopefully challenge you to go to a next level with some things. Okay, so like what can you do with the folio information, for example, and how can you also I'm gonna don't take this the wrong way, but I don't know how else to say it, is create a sophisticated look on there. And sometimes that means just a refinement of what you're already doing. I don't think it's a matter of you needing don't know how to do it. It's more of how can you refine the application of those things. And to a certain degree, that's for all of us. But I think once we're used to using a particular piece of software or anything, you know, we get used to using a camera. Okay, now I know how to take a snapshot. How can I take a better photograph, you know? So I think it's a little bit of that. And yeah, okay. And I'll probably continue to ask you if you, you know, when you know of any tips or things like that, if you'd like to share them, that'd be great. Okay? Okay, cool. Broski, we've got all sorts of things going on here. So how are you doing?
So I have the text flown in, and I guess I have my title. I still just need to. I actually sort of have paragraph styles set up that I want to use. I just have to start format.
Okay. I actually, with you and Jasmine, I want to mention this one little thing that could occur for all of us. At some point, you get your document or your paragraph styles and your character styles going. Okay, you start in on it, and then at some point you look back and you notice that in the documents, in the paragraph styles window or character styles window, the name of the style has now added a plus.
Yeah.
Okay, that occurs when you forget that you've applied the look through the styles and instead individually altered it on some paragraph or something like that. You want to avoid that if possible. Okay, and sometimes if you catch it soon, you know, just undo that little change, and then either make it a new paragraph or character style altogether, or edit the style itself. Because once you start getting styles with their names that have pluses after them, then you will gradually lose the consistency, and that's the whole reason that you set them up for in the first place. Okay, so the plus sign after the name of a style is actually not a good sign. Megan, how are you doing?
Hi. So I've flowed in the text. I just need to stylize everything. I'm basically at the same part as like Melanie and Paula. I have the page numbers in. It's just, yeah, pretty much stylizing all of it.
Okay, so it sounds to me like everything that you're trying to do up to this point, you're able to do it, and you're just at that step, ready to go to the next. So to go to the next step, it's clear to you how to do that and how to make the changes that you want to make?
Yeah. As I'm like doing it, I'm also playing our past classes in the background, and I'm just kind of like trying to follow along with it a little bit better.
Okay, actually, for all of you, are the recordings helping? Are you able to go fast forward to areas okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. I had no idea if they would be helpful or not. So that's good. This recording is going to be quite long, so you might have to fast forward to get to places where you want to be. I haven't asked the birthday girl how she's doing. So how is yours coming along?
So I've been jumping back in between assignments. So I have the title created and the title like subtitle, and got my reserved pages for things so I don't forget about them. And you know, all my text is flowed in, but I did do play with some of the paragraph styles, but still trying to figure out what you know, what typeface I'm going to use and whether I wanted to do different ones for different things, because then that kind of changes things on the title page and everything else too, like what font I would be using for that. So that's pretty much, the master pages, you know, I put the folio, the number in there. I was playing around with putting the dingbats in there, but I haven't decided. And then I was going to ask you, you had 2 on there, and I did look to see if I could find it somewhere, if there was an answer to this, but I didn't find one, and it may be on there and I just didn't see it. But do you have to have 2 dingbats around the number? Can I just have 1 so it's not too busy?
You don't have to have any.
But if I did want a dingbat?
Yes, you could have just 1.
Okay. And then I guess my other question is,
it's a design
can you do a dingbat ending your, like, the end of the story, but then if you have a dingbat in your folio, is that too much, too crazy?
Could be. It's a design decision. So if you want it in both places, then you always come back to this. It's like the golden rule here. Treat different information differently. So the dingbat in the story, its purpose is to indicate the end of the story.
The end of the story, yeah.
That's different from a dingbat in the folio. So if those are 2 different reasons for being there, then they should look differently.
Okay, just making sure, because I figured they should be, but I wasn't sure if that would be too crazy if they were different. I'm like, but it seems like it would make sense if they're different.
They can work.
I did do my Fibonacci numbers with my margins and everything, so I fixed that because I was working on it with my other book too. So then I fixed those. What else? Yeah, I'm just playing around with how I'm putting it in there, and then making sure that I don't know, just I'm trying to get the look right. I did change the margins from the first time I did it because I was missing out on something, and since we had talked previously about in the other class about having my bottom margin larger and making sure it was the Fibonacci, so I changed that as well. So I do need to change the typeface and the point size and everything on my folio. I haven't done that yet. It's kind of I'm in the process of doing that. So
because that's too similar to the story text?
Yeah, it is. And I knew it was, and I totally forgot about it. But since you brought it up earlier, I just had to make a note that I need to do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to forget about it. So.
Yeah. Good. I think that I want to repeat something I just kind of mentioned in a previous little get together. I didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, I don't believe, but I'm going to bring it up again. And that is, and I think I talked about that in terms of punctuation. So punctuation exclamation points, question marks, those are good candidates, but quotation marks are also good candidates for what I'm about to say, and page numbers. They are all they have each of them have a practical purpose of helping us to understand that the words before it were meant to be a question, or they meant to be excited, or they identify a particular page in the book. That's their practical purposes for each of those things. But they also can have another purpose as a graphic element. So as a graphic element, one option would be, maybe I make these page numbers huge, way bigger than they actually have to be to tell me what page I'm on. But as a graphic element, it serves a purpose. And so, you know, you can play around with that. Same thing with quotation marks, maybe. You know, you can, again, you can check that out. I think where that idea works the best, even though I just gave you examples of where it could be used in each of those, I think where it works best is on pull quotes. The quotation marks, if on a pull quote, especially if that pull quote is maybe only 2 or 3 lines long, but it really will work on a deeper quote anyway, where the quotation marks are treated quite large, but they're kerned in behind it so that even part of the quote overlaps one of the quotation marks, and the gray and the quotation marks are made gray because I made them really big. So I'm going to reduce their contrast with the page to not be black, but instead being a light gray. So now I'm treating those quotation marks, giving them additional visual importance as a graphic mark, in addition to the fact that they are punctuation marks. They have that practical reason for being there too. So page numbers, punctuation marks, and I thought I said something else. Each of those can be there for a practical purpose as well as a graphic visual.
I have one last question.
Yes.
You're on
You
mute.
said page numbers, punctuation marks, and quotation marks, right?
Yes, there you go. Thank you. I knew I had 3. Kevin?
So like in the Embassy of Cambodia, how they have 0, 2, and all those other numbers.
Yes, yes.
Are they using those as dingbats?
They are not technically dingbats, but that would be an example where you could treat them as graphic elements as well, just like what we were just talking about. So they're
because I've been trying to connect it to the story, and I just can't figure out a way to connect it to the story because they seem so disjointed. At first, I was thinking, oh, like maybe it's gonna end up being like the points for the whole what is the thing called badminton game that she was watching, or something like that. But it never turned out. So I was like, okay.
They are separators.
Okay.
And that's basically what they are. They're a contemporary writer's version of a separator. And and you can, as the typographer designer, as long as they remain with their practical purpose of separating, this is a new stanza, this is another day, this is another year, something like that. As long as it still does that, you can treat them visually however you want. And so we could apply the kind of example I just said to Hatsine, where I make them much bigger than they need to be, but I make them gray. And I actually have part of the paragraph overlap them. You know, any variation of that is possible, because now I'm thinking of it to have dual purpose, both its practical reason for being there as a separator and a visual purpose because I want the page to be more visually dynamic.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing, trying to figure out like what in the world, how to like treat those, even though you had mentioned some of that before, but I was still trying to figure out how it related to the story. And I was thinking, like, is that the amount of days? Like, is that a different day? Like, I just kept going back to the same thing, going, I don't know what they are.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's because you have the text in that has been stripped of all those clues.
Mm-hmm.
You put clues back in to how you think it would make those words most understandable.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to end with this one thing. I just said it's this idea of making the page more visually dynamic. So you should not try to make every page doing something different. Don't do that one. Remember, our main purpose of this is for readability. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, does that mean we can't do visually things with the page? No, it doesn't mean that at all. We just need to do it within the boundaries where readability is still the priority. So, keeping that in mind, what are the things I can do to make the page more dynamic and keep readability priority? So here are some of the things. I introduced the idea of text wrap, although I did a lousy job of demonstrating it. But text wrap is one idea with a small illustration. We also have the folio treatment. We also have, if we do a 3-column grid, a possibility of a narrow column that's kept reserved for when I want to put in an illustration. Some pages don't have anything in it at all. The other thing, and you set up the design rule, you could say that, no, that's not where I want to put illustrations. They're too tiny. So instead, I use the 3rd column for pull quotes. And the and that is one thing I kind of thought I'd demonstrate today, but I'm going to hold off until next time. And so the pull quote might start in the 3rd column, but it's not confined to just that. It starts over there and actually intrudes into the text, and the story text wraps around the pull quote. So, those are kind of main ways that I can, captions, of course, full page illustrations, half page illustrations, in addition to the smaller spot illustrations. But this is primarily a text problem. So those other things that I mentioned to you, the folio, the pull quotes, that kind of stuff, the using 2 columns versus all 3 all the time, that variation within the composition, the use of the Fibonacci number series on the margins, all of that makes the page more visually interesting. It also gets us away from those really, really narrow default margins that also make it seem like a report rather than a dynamic page I want to read. So all of this stuff is not bells and whistles. It's just paying attention to the relationship between the parts and thinking about the hierarchy that needs to be there between those parts that'll help us with understanding the words. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have one major question, comment for us? Okay. So keep plugging away. And we'll talk again on Wednesday. All righty? Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for my birthday song.
That's a great birthday song.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.